Hey everybody, this is Brian Smith back with another episode of Grief to Growth. And today I've got with me Nell Rose Foreman. And I'm going to read Nell Rose's biography, and then we'll get started. We're going to have a conversation about her and her son, Jack. Nell Rose lost her beautiful 23-year-old son, Jack, to a horrific 9-month battle with glioblastoma, an insidious brain cancer that began just after Jack graduated from college. Shortly after his transition, Nell Rose started getting signs from Jack. One of his signs being a picture of his light being, I should say, was taken at the beach this summer and was recently published in both the IANDS and the Helping Parents Heal newsletter. Jack has communicated a mission to let people know that there is no death and to awaken to who and what we really are. There are 4 pillars in how Jack lived his life, which is his legacy. They are to live your life to your full potential, to follow your heart, to love fiercely, and to not care what anyone else thinks. This is how Jack wants us all to live. Prior to Jack's death, Nell Rose was a resiliency coach. She created a process of using a blend of conscious and subconscious work that includes mindfulness, neuroscience, psychology, and ancient wisdom to successfully allow people to achieve what they want. Now she's using this same process to help herself survive, heal, and thrive after her child loss. She feels traditional thinking of grief focuses on disconnection, and after receiving several signs from her son, it has challenged her own beliefs, and now she's working towards connection with him. So with that, I want to welcome Nell Rose Foreman.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian, for having me on the show.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to having our conversation. I was introduced to you by a mutual friend, Lilia, who's with the IANDS Association, and she was telling me great things about you and telling about this image that you shared with me of your son Jack after he had made his transition.
Yes, you actually just went out there. So what did you just say? Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, what I was saying is we were introduced by a mutual friend, and it was Lilia with IANDS Association. She was telling me about the visit you got from your son Jack, the picture that you got of him this past summer.
Yeah, so that was a really big moment for me. I think like most parents, we are looking for signs often and continuously. And this was a particular weekend. It was it was about a year and a month past his transition date. And it was the first time I was bringing my kids. I have 4 other children and a couple of daughter-in-laws. And I was bringing everybody to the beach for the weekend. And I was kind of walking to the beach myself and, 3.5 blocks of crying and talking to Jack and just letting him know that I missed him, that I wish, he was here and how difficult this is. And I asked him, could you give me a real physical sign? Something. I said, I love the rainbows and butterflies and things that we all see. I said, but I really just need something physical today to let us know that you're with us. And, so please, 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 it will make me feel so much better to connect with us.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went about my day and just enjoyed the kids and was trying to just I was being present with the kids. And my 21-year-old son had gone up the beach and was with a friend, and all of a sudden texted me a picture. And nobody knew that I had communicated to Jack and kind of put the pressure on for a real physical sign.
Mm-hmm.
And he just texted me and he said, I think Jack's with me. And it was this picture of what I would call his light being. I don't know how to describe it any other way, but this energy of light that was just undeniable to me and incredible. And it started this whole kind of, at first I didn't share it with anybody and just kind of enjoyed it, with the kids I did, of course, and we all
Mm-hmm.
talked about that and just really felt grateful that Jack is with us and gave us such a significant sign. And then I started showing people, and I also have 3 friends that are photographers, and so at it to see if they could discredit it and give me a reason why or what this is. And they all 3 looked at it and said I've never seen anything like this. And and then I started showing friends that I know have also lost children, and they were just like, you've got to share this, you got to share this. And I had gone to IANDS and I showed it to a few people there, and the president of IANDS had said, send it to me and let's publish this, because it will help a lot of people to give them the knowing that our children do exist. It's a great physical sign.
Yeah, I saw the image, and what we'll do is, if you can send a copy of it, I'll put a link to it in the show notes, and then on YouTube I'll include it with the video. I'll have to say I've never seen anything like that. I've looked at quite a few images. I'm not an expert by any means,
Right.
And I've seen camera artifacts. I've seen things that people think are orbs that are really just dust or sun flares. So it's really interesting. You had some photographer friends look at it, familiar with the way cameras work. And they're saying it's not something they've seen before, right?
That's right. Yeah. Well, my dad used to be an editor of the Philadelphia Inquirer, so newspaper man, and he's kind of drilled it in my head. You have to disprove, and if you can, really kind of nail down on it. Is it real? Is it not? And like I said, all three of them have not been able to make anything of it. They've just never seen anything like it.
Yeah, and it's also the thing about signs, because people are, a lot of people that might not be familiar, when we ask our kids for signs, like I think you mentioned, there's feathers and there's butterflies and there's coins and all these things that we think of typically. But then sometimes it seems like if we really set an intention and we really need that sign, a lot of times we'll get these spectacular things like what you got from Jack that day. And so it's the timing of it, in addition to the fact that you just got this incredible picture.
Oh, for me, it's absolutely about the timing, that I asked him specifically for a physical sign, because I don't normally do that. I almost feel like, it's like, okay, your mom's needing something more, I don't want to put pressure on him, and as much as I want to constantly ask for signs, I try not to always ask for signs. I'll always look for signs, but I don't say specifically something physical. That's actually the first time I've ever said I need something physical. So for me, that was the smoking gun, or whatever you want, that this is like my kid's listening to me, and just, that's incredible to me, that to know that he's so present in my life and our family's life, that work and manifest, he did that. And that's just an incredible thing and an incredible gift for me to not be able to question it anymore. That, is he really here? Because looking at that, yes, he is really here.
Yeah, yeah, because we hear, okay, yeah, they're still alive, right? But they're across the veil and they're doing their own thing or whatever. But to know that he was there, present with you that day, and able to bring through that sign's got to be a very comforting feeling.
It is very comforting, and I also want to mention that, like in 2009, completely unrelated, I had I would call it an STE, a spiritual transforming event, where I had an out-of-body experience with no drugs, no alcohol, and kind of went up and I was surrounded by these light beings. There was an oval circle of light beings, and I was a light being as well. And it was just this communication of love. You could feel the love, the connection. Nobody spoke anything, but you knew what was being communicated, I guess, telepathically. And then if you went through the light beings, with another light being, you could feel the energy even more. So I don't know what that was. And I almost sound crazy saying this, and I never even told anybody that, but that light being that I call in the picture is what I felt like. That's, I had that experience in this spiritual transforming event, so it's very similar. It almost like, like he knew what to look, I don't know, maybe it looks like that normally, that's his light being look, but to me, it was a very confirming, like, I've seen this before. And I wonder, like, why did I have this experience? And, I couldn't make anything of it. Like I said, I never even really mentioned it to other people before, because I sound like I'm crazy, so I never mentioned it. And for him to show me that based on that, I wondered after he passed, is that, I always thought that's where Jack is. That's what he is, as we are all this light, right? We are just these beings of light. And so for me to get a picture of that was just so much confirming evidence for me that he is present and here.
So this experience you had in 2009, was that just a spontaneous event that
It was
you?
absolutely a spontaneous event. I
Okay.
was sitting and talking to two other people, and I mean, I just felt like I went somewhere else, and I was somewhere else. And then, and then when I came back out of it, I'm like, "What was that?" And they're looking at me like I'm insane. They're like, "What do you mean? Like you didn't go anywhere?" And I'm like, "I totally was not here
Hmm.
anymore." So
Hmm.
there was no missing of time for me physically. Obviously, I didn't disappear.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but they didn't know anything was wrong. There was not like I passed out, or I didn't know what to make of it, because I know I had this experience, and I don't know what it was. But and since, yeah, like I said, since Jack's passed, I'm like, did I have that experience so that I would know where he is when he
Hmm.
passed, that that's what we are and who we are? Because I don't remember anything like, oh, this is what they told me, that go back and do this or say this. There was none of that. It was just, this is who you are. This was just what you are and who we are. And so that was really about the summary of it. It wasn't like, your mission now is to go tell everybody or write a story about it. It was nothing. It was just like, how do you even explain that? So
Yeah, those are rare, but they're not unheard of. I've heard of a couple
okay,
people that have
really.
had yeah, I've talked to people that have had experiences like that. I know one guy that had two of them, and they were not near death experiences. There was not, he wasn't in any physical danger. I think he said one time he was in a park and he just found himself out of his body. Another time he was sitting in his house.
Okay,
Um,
that's good to know. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's, we can't explain, I think the why if we get these things. I think sometimes it's what we need at the time. And for you, maybe it was kind of a foreshadowing of what you were going to see, years later.
Right. Yeah, I think it's just, yeah. I don't know what it was, but it was awesome.
Yeah. So tell me about Jack. I mean, it sounds like Jack, while he was here, lived a pretty incredible life and taught you a lot of lessons while he was here.
Well, he did. I mean, of course, I'm a little bit biased, as we all are as parents, that our children are amazing. But yeah, he just absolutely. First of all, he's filled with love and joy always, and just a caring for other people, and had a great sense of what I would communicate, or what I and his friends would communicate, is he knew what everybody else needed and how to respond to them very differently. And it was almost like he could see your higher self. We used to call him, I do life coaching and hypnosis and stuff like that as a profession, but he was always everybody else's, and mine, life coach, because it was like he had a view of what your, I would call it, your higher self, like, in the high performing, and he would encourage people in a really wonderful way to get there. He knew how to deal with each type of friend, and made them feel confident, made them feel like they could do anything, and just naturally lived life so full. So, loved being outdoors and climbing mountains and hiking, and had no interest in money and in material things. And it was just very much being with his friends and being outside and striving for your best. So he also would read, I mean, he read an enormous amount of books, of like self-help books and things like that, as a kid and getting older, because he died at 23. But he just, he was well versed in what he should be doing and how to get there, and to work hard, and but to enjoy it, to really, wherever he was, no matter what situation, nothing ended up throwing him off. And this included, I mean, this was a horrific experience, and he just was always, always, always so strong, resilient, never asked why me, never, didn't complain. I mean, we laughed all the time in the hospital, which sounds crazy, when you think about it. But he just is, I'm in awe of him. I don't know how to describe it any other
Yeah.
way, because I don't know very many people that could go through what he went through, and to continue to be strong, and worried about everybody else. And yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, I guess he went through quite a bit of trauma with the glioblastoma. Was I mean, that's a horrible disease, and a lot of times it's pretty quick, as far as the way it takes us.
Yeah. Well, so he had just graduated from college.
Mm-hmm.
This was back in 2017, May of 2017. He had to spend the summer. Actually, he drove from Penn State across country to the Rocky Mountains in Colorado and all these different places as part. He was a geoscience major. Loved the earth and hiking and all that fun stuff. And part of his graduation requirement was to do this with his classmates, and they would do 15-hour days of being in the field of climbing and rigorous work, and he did that. I want to say it was 4 weeks he was gone, and so he wasn't home. And then he got home mid-July, and he had a job lined up starting in September. So he and his girlfriend that ended up being his fiance went to Bangkok, went to Thailand for a 3.5 week amazing tour that he kind of planned, and they were saving their pennies to kind of get over there and do this. And as he said, we want to go and play before we start adulting.
Yeah, yeah.
And flew across country and landed, and they had getting to the hotel that one night, and they were in Bangkok, thank goodness, and woke up the next morning and went to go to the bathroom, and on the way to the bathroom just let out a scream and knew his head hurt. And at that point, what we didn't know at that point, he had a massive brain tumor on the right side of his brain, because he had no signs or symptoms that we were aware of. And so he was having a hemorrhaging brain tumor, and he had a stroke, so he lost the left side of his body, and obviously his brain was at that point starting to swell, but still cognizant enough that you've got to get me, telling his girlfriend, because he did all the research for where they were going, and he's like, there's no ambulances, there's no 911, get me downstairs, get me in a cab, send me to a private hospital. And then when he got there, then they put him in the CT scans and stuff, and then I'm getting a phone call from his girlfriend that his brain tumor. And I'm like, my son doesn't have a brain tumor. And I mean, talk about terrifying. I mean, the doctor, a doctor got on the phone, said he has a hemorrhaging brain tumor. We have no plan, but doctor coming, we get a plan, and sending me paperwork to sign from, on the internet to send back, and starting to look for flights to get out there, but it's not a fast trip, as you can imagine. It's
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but he survived that. I mean, amazing. They were amazing in Bangkok. The doctor was incredible. You could say he got the tumor, which I said was an enormous tumor. And what they feel is probably was growing for about 9 years. You can have something growing for about 9 years that was probably not cancerous, that turned cancerous, but so he lost a big piece of his skull. He couldn't walk anymore. He lost the whole left side of his body, feeling in it, and all left side of his eyesight in each eye. And so we were there for almost 3 weeks.
Wow.
And interesting enough, on the way there, right when they were in the airport, because they didn't have insurance or anything, and Jack decided he's going to buy insurance. So he bought, life insurance, medical insurance, and what that helped with was getting him home, with a nurse and medical care, and which was very helpful. I mean, obviously,
Wow.
financially, and so you just kind of wonder. I mean, sitting in the airport before he boarded,
Right.
says, "I'm going to buy insurance," and did.
A 20, 22 or 23-year-old kid. I mean,
Me too at
that's,
that
yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, it's hindsight. You look at like, what does the soul really know, right? And
Mm-hmm.
Jack always, interesting enough, also, he's my second son out of, I have 5 kids,
Mm-hmm.
and so his older brother, as he got older and was turning, I think he was 24, and he's like, man, you only got a couple years left, and then your life's all over. Like, he really didn't see that it would be good to grow old.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at it like, did he also kind of, his soul know? I don't think he knew, obviously, but did his soul know that he would
Yeah.
be here long? because that's not a normal thing that people say. And then, and Jack did say, boy, did I have it wrong. All I want to do is grow old. And, he didn't get that opportunity.
Yeah.
So,
That's interesting. As I talk to parents of kids who died, early, or passed early, like my daughter was 15, they seem to have a lot of things in common. And I don't know if this is just because I don't know what the reason is, but they seem to live life to the fullest. They really like to connect with people. Shayna never was concerned about growing old, never really wanted to grow up. I remember when she was like 10 years old, she started crying because we said, well, Shayna, you have to grow up. And she's like, I just want to stay a kid.
oh, wow.
And she would say things like, actually just a few weeks before she passed, she was playing with my other daughter. We were at my parents' house, or my brother's house in Columbus, about 2 hours away. And she said, when I die, I want to be cremated and buried under a tree. She was 15. And I didn't know this till after she had passed. But after she had passed, we were trying to decide whether we were going to cremate her or not. And we were talking to my older daughter about it. And she said, yes, Shayna said that's what she wanted. And we said, what do you mean? And she said, well, just a few weeks ago, Mother's Day, and Shayna passed on June 24th. On Mother's Day, she said this. So you look back and at those things, and you wonder, did they know at some level?
Right. Well, I mean, I don't have any other experiences with my other children saying things like that, that I would say. There was actually a picture that my kids had taken, I think the year before at the beach. And we were at the beach and there were these big rocks. We were down in Georgia, and the four of my kids were like standing, they just went out there and I just took a picture, and it's a gorgeous shot. And like these were big boulder rocks that they were standing on, and kind of being, standing and posing. And the four of them are really close together. And then Jack is a little bit too far off to the side to me and sitting down and kind of very relaxed, where the other ones are very together. And it just, I love the picture, but I'd always sit there and just look at it and like, I want to squeeze him in closer.
Yeah.
I felt like I was losing him, is what I would say to myself. It's like he's not a part of the group. Like, why is he not a part of that group? And something in me was already nervous. I don't know. I don't know. I can't say that was insight, because it certainly wasn't. But
I think sometimes we have these little clues that come along that, that kind of let us, I don't know if it's our, maybe a little leaking through, because we come here, we do the soul planning, and we come here and we know the plan, and maybe we get little glimpses of it to, I don't know if it's to soften the blow or what the reason is for it, but it happens. I can tell you, I've talked to a lot of parents when we look back and we say, was that a sign? Is that something that they knew? They'll say things or do things, and that kind of let us know that there seems to be, on some level at least, that the soul knows, that they're not going to be here for a very long time.
Right.
So tell me about the process. I know you said you were a resiliency coach before Jack passed.
Yeah.
So how did that help, or how did that impact your dealing with Jack's passing? And then you had a technique that you were using. You said it's a blend of conscious and subconscious work. So talk about that too.
Well, I mean, prior to Jack, I've through my life experiences and different things, things that I thought were really challenging, that were challenging, it kind of brought me to create this process. And like I said, to save myself from my own experience, what I was going through, and it worked really well. So it is a blend of conscious and subconscious work. It's also of the neuroscience behind it all. And so looking at which each thought that we have, we release neurochemicals in our brain. And so, understanding how our bodies work and how to, most of the time, we have a sympathetic and a parasympathetic nervous system, the autonomic nervous system. And with each chemical, or with each thought, you're releasing chemicals that are either bringing you closer to relaxation or closer to, let's say, cortisol levels and stress levels and things like that. And right now, with everything in our world, obviously, there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of fear and phobia. And so we are, as a society, a culture, really great at really driving those cortisol levels and everything else. But we're never really taught how to calm our whole system down.
Mm-hmm.
And so I use a blend of conscious and subconscious work. So the conscious part is looking at habits and your thought patterns and how you're feeling. I always say feelings are the fuel of change. So you want to change something, you use the feeling that you want to get. And then the other side is hypnosis, like really kind of getting into that meditative state and learning how to get into that relaxed state. What does it feel like when you're in relaxed? But also bringing that relaxed state into the everyday activity and bringing in that feeling that you want. So that's where you interrupt the patterns and habits that we have that may necessarily not be working for us. The other key factor is the looking at your belief systems, and what is the story that you're telling yourself about each thing. I call them, we should be doing belief audits all the time. Are they empowering us or disempowering us? And when this obviously first happened, and I can still get into that state because you and I both would give anything to have our children here, of course,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
physically and a part of our lives, or at least I know I would. I would change it, but as we all know, we can't. We don't get that opportunity. That is gone.
Mm-hmm.
So my belief systems before this, I do believe we're here, but I guess it was more in an esoteric of, like a medium could connect with them, but I can't,
Right.
and kind of that kind of belief system, and it's not serving me. So, like what are my thoughts? And I'm also a big believer of feeling what I'm feeling in the moment. I did not that, and it's bad for, it was my personal choice not to use any kind of numbing, anything that would numb my feelings to this, or any medication that would numb myself, or distract myself. I wanted to feel all of this horrible feeling and experience it, because that's how I feel like we do learn. That's how we do change. And, if this is going to crack us open, like let's just crack it on open and see what happens and experience it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's a highly individual choice as to whether we want or need to have something like that. So I just want to make that point to anybody
yeah.
that
And I agree.
does.
There's no judgment or no, yeah,
Yeah.
everybody needs to do, that's, you best. Everybody knows themselves best and they need to do what they need to do. But I did not want to be numbed, and I wanted to unfortunately experience this and let that play out.
Yeah, I think we will have to experience it at some point, even if we do try to numb ourselves. So I completely agree with that. But I think that initial shock may be overwhelming for people. Like for just in my case, my doctor gave me something to take that I took, like for example, the day of Shayna's service,
Right.
and I took it a couple of times after that because just to get me through, those
Why?
times. But I kind of the same feeling that you do. It's like I'm going to have to process this at some point.
There's no
So
escape.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's no final, there's no escape. So processing it is good.
So you also mentioned that traditional thinking of grief focus on disconnection, but you're more focused on connection. We've talked about
Yeah,
the huge sign you got from Jack, but it sounds like even before that, you started getting signs from Jack.
I did. I did. I went on I have a friend who is a shaman, and so she did a shamanic journey for me. So that was one of the first times that I connected with him. And like I'm a very, even though I do hypnosis and different things, I'm a skeptic by nature, and I love meditation. And so you can, lay me down and say, close your eyes, and you're going to go on this journey. And she's drumming, and I'm like, okay. And she had set it up that like you'll go through this pathway and you'll go down, and then you'll be in a field and there'll be grass. And so I was just imagining, playing with the grass and walking along, and I'm like, if it was going to be 15 minutes. And I'm like, if it's 15 minutes, I can do this for 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden, boom, I was in Jack's body. He was at home on hospice when he passed away. And I felt like I was in Jack's body. And I mean, viscerally, I was terrified. It was like, oh my gosh. And I started crying, and
Mhm.
I'm like, I knew I could open my eyes and just step out and be done with this. But I was just like, let me see what's happening here and just
Mhm.
stay with it. And then it felt like I transitioned. I saw my mother and my grandmother, and I got beautiful I can't imagine what happened in 15 minutes. It was amazing, the experience. Like, my mom was showing me and Jack was with me. Mother were there, and when he passed is what he was saying. And then and my mom was there, and then I saw her and myself, like me as a baby, and then me as like a 3-year-old, and then she was teaching me how to ride my bike. And he was telling me, she's showing you all the ways that she loved you throughout your life. And it just like I said, this amazing experience transpired. But the really key message that he told me in that experience, he was worried about his siblings and all of us. He said he wanted us all to look further into that he's still here, that the other side, and to start learning about it and educating about other people's experiences and what is that like. And my mom, she used to, at Christmas time, she said, if you don't believe in Santa, you don't get any presents. And no matter how old we got, my kids all knew it, I knew it, you could never say to Mom, you don't believe in Santa, because she was just like, you're done, you're not getting anything.
Wow.
And so he communicated to me, he's like, it's like my mom always said, if you don't believe in Santa, you don't get presents. And he said, it's just like that now. If you don't believe I'm here, you're never going to see me or feel me or experience me. And he's like, so tell my siblings, then that I'm here, and, waiting for them to start working on connecting. And, we're almost a year and a half in, and some are working really a lot to try and connect with them, and others are processing their grief differently, which is perfectly fine. But we all believe and know he's here. We see signs and things like that, and so it's a really great thing. So that was key for me. And then I would say the next big thing for me was when it was his birthday, and I was driving to work, and I don't know about other parents, but for me, the car is a great place to scream or cry, or because it's so rare that we're alone or can feel comfortable. And so that was certainly what I did driving around, was screaming and crying. But his birthday, I was just like, again, I really need to feel you. I need to know you're here. This is your first birthday after transitioning, and I'm freaking out. And it was like within a minute and a half, I all of a sudden feel this presence, across my left side, which I always say is interesting, because he couldn't feel his left side. And I knew it was him. And I'm like, wow, it just took my breath away. The amount of love that I felt and the connection, I personally couldn't deny it. I've never felt anything quite like that. And then what I loved about it is that it wasn't just that once, that he kept, I was actually interviewing people for this, this work thing, and all of a sudden it would just come in again. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, this is awesome. But it's like, okay, I'm at work, but it's just like, he was like making a point, like, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. And so that was just incredible for me.
So you have 4 other children besides Jack,
I did.
and you kind of touched upon how they all believe and know that Jack's still around, but they're handling their grief in different ways. And I think that's normal, and especially for, I think, younger people. My daughter was 18 when her sister passed, and Shannon was 15. So she handled it differently than we do, as parents and as older people. So how are your kids? You said they're handling it pretty well, but they're handling it in different ways.
So the younger two, they're only 7.5 years apart, the 5 kids. So they're all very close in age. And, but Jack was very much impactful for the younger two, and was, I would call, more of a mentor or father figure for the younger two. And so they both definitely have, I don't want to say taken it harder, but definitely fallen apart a lot more. My one son has really, really struggled without having Jack here, and fallen into, I would call it, the spiritual questioning of why are we here. He's a very deep thinker, and really trying to sort it all out of, because he just wanted to go join him. And so that was terrifying for me, of, keeping him here, keeping him grounded. And he's definitely like we do, we work with mediums and talk with Jack, and he absolutely has embraced that, and loves to talk with Jack and
Great.
connect with him.
Yeah.
But down the spiritual, I would call it the rabbit hole. Like, if we're here, what are we doing here? What am I supposed to be doing here? And
Hmm.
why did Jack leave me? And my daughter kind of does grief more, where she can appear normal, and then she'll just fall apart for like 2 days of just, really kind of crying and not sure what to do or how to do it. And then I've got a child that's becoming a nurse, and he's completely immersed in making money for, well, they all go to Penn State, or they all went to Penn State. I've got 3 there now.
Wow.
And yeah. So Thon, which is their, for childhood cancer fundraising. And so he's actually the captain of the bereavement counselor for Thon. So he deals with families that have lost children, or are losing children. Family just lost their baby. So he's communicating with them and talking with them, and so he kind of wants to just plow ahead and help as many family and people that he can go through this kind of experience.
Wow,
So
that's great.
yeah, it's there's not one of us that's not impacted. His fiance is no longer, she was a graphic artist and was going to work in that, and God bless her, when this happened, she did not even go to her job, and she stood by Jack's side through the entire thing, and
Hmm.
went to every doctor's appointment, and was just an incredible support for all of us, being there. So she is now has thrown all that out and is now a nurse, and
Wow.
very much wants to work with probably neuro, and people with cancer and neuro problems, and really she just impactful. She's in her clinicals and stuff like that now, and she has just such an insight that the teachers and everything have said she just can connect so well with everybody, and I know this because of the experience that she went through. She's been on the other side, and knows what it's like, and wants to help. So
Yeah, that's great, and it sounds like it's good to be able to recognize the out of the tragedy of Jack's passing. How it's actually helped in some ways with everybody's connections, and understanding, and it's good that your family has that understanding that Jack is still there, and are making efforts to connect with them. I think that's a wonderful thing.
yes, connecting with him is everything. So I believe that we all can connect with our children. And if one person can do it, we all can learn, but it's just, opening up. So for me, I don't want to say, I wanted to raise my vibration. I wanted to get rid of the grief fog as fast as I could, although it doesn't happen fast, no matter what you do. So don't get me wrong. I'm plenty time in a fetal position and all that fun stuff. But I look at post-traumatic stress and post-traumatic growth, like you said, the good things. And honestly, in the beginning, when people would say that, like, what, good will come of that, I did not like that. I
Yeah,
would get
not at all.
angry, pissed off, and like, there's nothing good that could happen that
Hmm.
would ever be worth my son's life. And
Hmm.
it's still, there still isn't. But I don't have that. It's not like it's worth my son's life, because we can't change it. It's done.
Right,
So we
right.
may as well allow goodness to come.
It's good and bad. It's not good or bad. There's both in it. It doesn't mean that because something good comes out of it, it negates all the pain and all the bad things. But I will say for you, it's been how long since Jack passed now? Year and a
Almost
half?
a year and a half.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible how far that you've come in that amount of time, because usually, and it's not usual. I mean, it's different for everybody, but to be at the understanding that you have now and where you are now is really great. But I like the way you let everybody know it's not like it's been really easy. It's not like you still don't have bad days. And for me, it's been 4.5 years, and it's still not easy. So I don't want to give people the impression that it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, if you just believe these things or do these things, and do
No, it's a
hypnosis.
process. And actually,
Hmm.
I want to mention one thing, like, so part of my process, and this is just me processing, like I said, I'm trying to save myself from this experience. And if people can learn or understand or kind of look at things differently in my process, that's wonderful. Um, I've recently feel like, I've been trying to, yeah, I've got, you got 2 feet, 1 foot in. I so want the physical body of Jack. I want to embrace him. I want the life that he was going to live, the children that he would have had, just the him making me laugh, like, aching for the physical experience. And, in that process, I'm torturing myself, because it is painful. When you think about it, it's painful, and he doesn't want me to be in that pain, right? And also the guilt, like when you have a good day and then you're like, well, what am I, does that mean I don't care? And no, it doesn't mean I don't care. There's, we can beat ourselves up in so many ways. But I really think that, there's the light being Jack, the energy of Jack, and I'm working to figure out how to connect with him more and more. And like I said, focusing on connection. And then there's the physical body where we've lost that. It's not here anymore. And all the thoughts around that are very painful of it's not going to be there. So it's like when I go to that now, I've been, kind of putting my attention back on the connection and stopping myself from thinking about that too much, going down the rabbit hole of all of the things that I'm going to miss and not experience without his physical body here, and thinking, okay, Jack, what do you got for me, coming up at Christmas? How are you
Yeah,
going to show up? And
yeah,
and I felt them today really clear. I don't always feel them, I don't always feel them. And there's days where if I don't feel them, I'm like, am I just crazy? Like, so I don't want it to, again, it's not easy and our minds do that, right? But where do we end up with our focus the
yeah.
most?
Folks,
Where,
yeah, focus is the key. That when you said that, it just kind of triggered something because as you were talking, you were saying, okay, we can focus on what we're missing, which is the physical. And if we do that, we're going to be focused on something that we can't have, and we're just going to be making ourselves miserable. There's, it's by desiring something that's literally impossible for you to have, you're not going to ever feel happy with that. Now, we're going to have that because we're human, but we can choose to focus on what we do have, and we can choose to focus on enhancing that. And one of the good things about being human is we can only have one thought at a time. So if we choose not to focus on this and to focus on this, the more that we can do that, the more we can move to a a more whole, healthy person. And like I said, we're still gonna have those times, and I still have those times, and I have pictures of Shane all over the house, and
me
I'll
too.
see a picture, and I want I'm like, man, I really wish she could be here right now. But now what I think about is, okay, well, we had a great time on that trip, because she'd be grown now anyway. She's not a little kid. She wouldn't be a little kid anymore. She'd be 20 years old, and she'd be off at college. So after when I look at those things, I miss that little girl, but that little girl wouldn't be here anyway at this point.
Mm-hmm. It's very true. And the memories, I love thinking about the memories of how Jack was, and just a part of our lives. So, he taught us all so much. I'd rather focus on that. Again, not that I don't go into those moments, because I do, but yeah, where are we really staying with, right? So it's a process. It's a daily, day in, day out, and it's all over the board, right? One
It
step
is.
forward, 3 steps back, and it's like, oh, I thought I was past this, especially, the year, the 1 year mark. Oh my goodness, the anxiety. I'm not an anxiety, kind of interrupted all my anxiety patterns, and I was right back into anxiety as the year was coming up. And then I noticed that, I also look at, like, when people say things, we tend to believe them, right? And everybody kept saying, like, oh, wait till you get to year 2, it's so much worse. And I'm like, well, not me, I'm not going there. I
Yeah.
tell you what, I was a mess for the first 2 months. I don't know what it was the second year in. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they were right. This is just like the desiring for the physical was just crazy for me. And that's when I was like, okay, am I going to go for the physical, or am I truly going to commit to doing whatever I have to do to raise my vibration, because that's what I've, read and studied, like, raise your vibration to connect with them. And I keep saying, I'm going to move into let's connect, Jack, like teach me. And I always joke, like, I hear that song, like, why don't you just meet me in the middle? You lower your vibration, I'll raise my vibration, and why don't you just meet me in the middle? And then I'm like, I hear Jack saying, like, Mom, it's not in the middle. You can do it, Mom, you can do it. And so it's just funny.
Yeah, well, it is a matter of trying to raise our vibration to a certain extent, as much as we can, and to connect with them and to look for them, and understand it's a different type of relationship. It's not going to be the physical relationship anymore, as you said, but it's subtle things. It's a feeling. It's a thought. It's a sign. It's some synchronicities. These types of things that come along. Just I call them God winks, or Easter eggs. Satan loved to play video games, so I call them Easter eggs. Which is like little hidden things when you're going around. It kind of says, this is really just a game. This, it's really, everything's going to be okay, and it's better than it really looks right now. And the more, you were saying earlier that Jack had kind of told you, well, if you don't believe, you're not going to see it, kind of like the Santa Claus thing. And it's not that it doesn't necessarily, it's not going to happen. You're just going to miss it. You're going to have a sign, and you're not going to take it as a sign. You're going to say that's just something that happened.
Mm-hmm.
But once you start looking for them, it just becomes almost miraculous. The things I think about in the last 4.5 years since Shane has passed, I can't even tell you all the crazy things that have happened, the synchronicities, the people that I've met, the timing of things that just kind of seem to work out. And I would have never thought this before Shayna passed. And it's ironic that that's what it took to get me to start looking around to see how things, really work.
Right. It is incredible, isn't it? That's the post-traumatic growth, right?
Yeah, that's what we're going for. It's again, it's not easy, but it's something that, once this happens to us, we get to make a choice as to how do we respond to it. And that's somewhat
has to be made over and over and over again.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Each moment, it's moment by moment. It's not like, oh, I made the choice, and yeah, that's easy. It's choosing
Yeah.
it again, and it's
Yeah.
choosing it again, and then choosing it again,
Yeah. It's
and
pick.
allowing yourself to fall apart when you need to fall apart, and miss. Like, it's not like I do miss that physical boy, and I allow myself to at times connect with it, but if I did that all day long, I would be miserable.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to give, I think, we have to allow emotions to flow through us. We have to honor the emotion when it comes, and sit with it and feel it. And if you were talking about meditation, I like to meditate. And sometimes when I'm meditating, I cry. And I was talking to Kelvin Chin a couple of weeks ago, and he had written in his book about overcoming the fear of death. He said after his mother passed, he said his meditation a lot of times would just be him sitting and crying. And that's okay. That's what he needed to feel. That's what he was feeling at that moment. So don't try to block it. Don't try to say, oh, I need to be still, I don't want to think about this. That's what you need to do. Just do that.
Right. That makes sense. I love it.
So tell me about, I know your website is www.resilientmindcoaching.com. What will I get when I go there?
So I also have some hypnosis websites as well, but that one is, it's going to be an introduction to me and kind of who I work with. I mean, I work all over the board. I've always worked with people in corporations, but I also work with individuals. I'm in a doctor's office locally, but I see clients all over the world, coach with them and do hypnosis with them, which is crazy as that sounds, for all, from a distance. But, I work with a lot of people with anxiety, fears and phobias, things like that, that are preventing them from what I would say living a life of freedom. So how can we look at how you're looking at things? Like I said, do a belief audit. Is this belief empowering me or disempowering me? And unfortunately, you have a belief or you have an experience or a trauma, and then your life gets smaller and then smaller. And I had an individual that was just recently working with me, so he's kind of top of mind, where 11 years ago, he was meeting his future in-laws, and for whatever reason, he says he's not an anxious person, ended up passing out at that dinner. And, he goes to the hospital, they check him out, they can't find anything wrong with him. So the doctors just kept saying, well, you must have had a panic attack and you must have just passed out. And he's like, but I don't remember being that way. But what happened is that he all of a sudden had this fear that his body's going to give out. Like, it wasn't really a conscious thought. And over 11 years, he's been to a bunch of therapists. He's, unfortunately, like, things got, as he started, his life got smaller and smaller. He ended up having 3 kids with his wife. And so when he came to me, he no longer could work. He couldn't leave the house by himself. His wife had to bring him. He could be a father in the house, but he couldn't coach Little League. He couldn't do anything like that. If something happened with one of the kids, that it would be a problem. And so his life had really pretty much shut down. And he came, and, when I did the work that I did with them, and I mean, it's not like it's instantaneous, but that day he's like, I went home, and he goes, I went to Home Depot for the first time all by myself, and he couldn't believe it. And then they came again. I've only seen him 3 times, and his life has, totally changed. So I love what I had always said I just want to be in service, because I don't believe it's me. I had always felt I was being guided by something else. And I just feel like I'm a conduit to be used to help the person see and do something differently. So I kind of pulled together from a lot of different modalities, a process that seems to work and help people to live a fuller life.
Wow, that's interesting. So what do you say to someone like me who thinks they can't be hypnotized?
Well, first of all, I'd ask you, well, why do you think you can't be? Because if you believe you can't be, then you're not going to be, because you're going to be resistant. So
Okay.
hypnosis is a natural brain state. What they do
Okay.
know about hypnosis is that we're in and out of it all day long. In fact, we're probably in a hypnotic trance more than we're not, right? But unfortunately, we're sitting there with our unconscious beliefs, believing that we can. And, have you ever listened to the language of some people and how they talk to themselves? Like, oh, I just can't believe I did that. How stupid was that? Oh my gosh, I'm horrible at this. And you pretty much, when you talk to somebody, you hear where their beliefs are. I can't do this, I won't do that, I'm not good at that. And I just look at everybody from a perspective of like, that's, it's something happened to you at some point in your life. Was it in 5th grade you decided you can't public speak because you got up to say something, and then something happened and everybody laughed at you. And from then on, your body, your mind is protecting you from ever letting that experience happen again. And then we create beliefs that I am an anxious person, or I'm not good at this. And, we kind of ride that out. So I love to challenge, our beliefs. As I said, as a belief audit, this is just because you have that belief that does not mean that's who you are at your core. I believe we get to identify and determine what our core being is, right? We're on this show. Our light being is amazing, and there is nothing that can hold us back in that form. So I believe at our core, that's who we are, that we're filled with, we could do anything. And so these beliefs, like, unclutter the beliefs and the things that are holding us back so we can be in true freedom.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So you said you do that work with both corporations and you do it with individuals.
Correct.
Okay. And it sounds like you're getting some great results. I just noticed, you sent me some notes the other day, and you mentioned shamanic journey, which you touched upon. You mentioned ayahuasca. Have you had an ayahuasca experience?
I've had 2. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Post Jack. Yeah. So, I work with people with their trauma, and like I said, I had pretty much eradicated, anxiety and panic attacks and things like that. But when this happened, there in that 9 months, the trauma that happened with Jack, it's indescribable, and I don't want to get into the weeds of all that. But when he died, for me, there was the grief, and then there's the trauma. And for a month and a half, I just was beside myself, which is normal. I mean, obviously, just but I was really caught up in the trauma. And because it was like all that trauma that happened in the 9 months, I couldn't react to in the 9 months because I needed to be on it. I needed to take care of him. I needed to be as present as I could for Jack. And then when I didn't have to do that anymore, it was like all of a sudden it felt like it was compounded. And I have a friend who, knew somebody that was coming from Peru. And, so it was guided in a very safe environment, a very ceremonial. And also they did a lot of, I would call it bodywork healing along with the journey. And it's funny because you said, this is just a game. And when I was in the ayahuasca, I absolutely felt Jack come in, and I felt him. He said that, "Mom, this is just a game. Like this, I haven't gone anywhere. I'm right here. And you got to just play the game because you don't believe all of the things that, are not working for you. Just, believe that I'm right here and we're going to be together. We are together now, but he goes, we'll be together. That it's just, you got to play the game and it's how you respond to this."
Yeah, it's interesting we're having this conversation because this is something that I have to try to reinforce with myself.
Mhm.
That this is a totally immersive, ultimate virtual reality game.
Right.
And Shayna and I, she loved to play games, and that was one thing that we had in common. Her sister didn't really like to play video games, but Shayna and I would play games. And Shayna always had the most lives because she was a great game player. So we play Mario Brothers, and she would have whatever 99 lives, always just the maximum number of lives you can get. And I would think back, it's like when we play the game, okay, so with all these lives, when she would die, she would just like regenerate, and just keep going.
Yeah.
And that's how we are. But when we're in this life, in this game, in the particular cycle that we're on, we think this is all there is. It's so totally immersive, and we can't see around it. We can't see outside of it, of the game. So we need these reminders from the science, from our kids.
So interesting about that. So like, I'm a big believer, like when I'm doing a belief audit, and what's empowering and disempowering me is finding scientific evidence that proves otherwise. So like part of this is a game generated reality, and Elon Musk and other scientists with quantum physics are kind of almost proving that that's most likely what's happening here, which is kind of a weird perception to think about it. But there is evidence out there that people are pointing toward that this is some kind of simulated reality experience that we're in. And it just gives me enough like, okay, well, we don't really know, right? We don't know what we don't know. And the experience that we're having, and, I don't know. When I work with my clients, it's like, how do we manipulate your mind to get what you want, right? And I can't get Jack back because that's what I want. But can I connect with them? Can I, create my beliefs that I know that this is just a temporary experience that I'm having and I'm going to be with him completely. But now at the same time, I want to play the game really well. I want to live more fully. I look at Jack's legacy, to live fully and your fullest potential and to love fiercely. I mean, that's just who he was. And I love, he embodied that so completely. And I just believe that, for me, that's what's pulling me forward is that whole, how he lived. I want to live that completely, which is not always easy, right? but yeah.
Well, to say it's a game, and I want to just say this not to you, but to people that are listening, to clarify, it doesn't mean it's not belittling or making light of anyone's
Oh
real
no.
trauma and pain, because there is real pain.
Oh
There is real trauma, and it's just like when you're in a dream. When you're in that dream state, the dream is very real to you. So even if this is only a dream, quote unquote, and we can't be harmed, and I don't think we can be permanently harmed, it's still very real. But
very real.
if this belief helps you a little bit to get through the things you're going through, and that's why I would say to people, whenever I put one of these theories, I'm like, only take it if it helps you. If it
Yeah.
makes you feel disempowered, if it makes you feel weird, if it feels wrong to you, then that's fine. But if it helps you, it helps me to know it's only temporary. And we all know it's only temporary. We know that for a fact because none of us is going to live here forever.
Yeah.
So, and that sounds weird to some people to say that's the good news. For me, that's the good news, because
That's the good news.
I'm looking forward to seeing Shayna again. I'm looking forward to seeing, my loved ones that have gone on before. And I know that, at this point I'm almost 60. I've got, a couple more decades and then I get to go home. But meanwhile, our kids, set great examples for us. Sounds like Jack did for you and as Shayna did for me.
Mm-hmm.
And they're watching us and they have expectations. And I know that I'm going to face Shayna's judgment when I cross over if I don't live up to what she expected me to do.
Yeah, I keep that in mind all the time too, that I want to make Jack proud. I want to make Jack proud. So yeah, I want to, as he said, play the game. But yeah, I didn't mean it as a,
No,
off
no.
mark or anything like that. It's very important, and everything here is real.
Yeah.
Of
No.
course, and my feelings and experiences are real. But the other thing the ayahuasca taught me that I just want to mention really quickly was that, which a lot of people have said, is that it's that whole, we are connected to everything.
Mm-hmm.
That there is, like, you could see the grid, or I could see the grid. It was like I could see the grid of everything and how we were connected, and the other people in the room, they would be experiencing something, and I would feel it in a different way. I would just know that, that was part of my experience as well. And the other thing, like, as these two beautiful people were going around and taking care of people and making sure they were okay, and I'm laying there, and I just clearly heard Jack say, like, Mom, this is what it's like in heaven. He's like, you see how they're checking in, they're making sure they're okay. He said, that's what we're doing. You're never alone. I'm constantly checking in. We're taking care of you. You're never alone, never disconnected. So for me, that was just an amazing experience. It's not, again, not for everybody.
Right.
There's a lot of science behind it, and it's being used a lot for people that, are near death with cancer and stuff like that. And clinically, I mean, it's at Johns Hopkins. There's a multi-million-dollar center the last 10 years for psilocybin. And so, it's not something to be scared of. It's being researched now, which is great. And it's being used, and they're finding it for PTSD it's a phenomenal thing.
Yeah, I've heard that, and I've heard they call it plant medicine. I mean, we all take medicine all the time, right? We're taking all the stuff that zones us out and numbs us out and turns us off, but there's a lot of natural things that we can do that might open up our eyes, which can just cause tremendous healing. And I've heard a little bit about some of the stuff. I've always been intrigued by ayahuasca. I just wanted to ask you that question. I'm scared to do it because I don't know what would happen, but it sounds just like amazing.
Well, I mean, there's good news and there's bad news. There's, I actually, the second time I did it, I took my son that's been really having a hard time. And, talking about scary, it was his choice to do it. I certainly did not make him do anything, and he chose to do it. So, be in that experience, and he understood the sacredness of all of it, and being in ceremony. I would never suggest doing a street drug like this. Like, this is not something you just find on the street and take it.
Right.
Definitely not. It has to be with ceremony. But this kid who's been so depressed, and he always says to me, like, you just want me to be happy. And I'm like, I'm not happy. I'm not saying you need to be happy, but to me, it's like looking for moments of joy. Just a moment of joy is bringing in a moment of joy throughout my day or throughout the week. And he had not been able to find any joy. And in ayahuasca, all of a sudden, I mean, it was interesting enough because they would do physical work on you as well, like I said. And it was like, it felt like it was like a transferring of energy from him to the guy that was working on him, who started crying. The gentleman started crying. And then it felt like the energy went right in my body, and I just started shaking, and then I was vomiting. So this was not a very good experience for me the second time around, because vomiting is a common thing too.
Right.
And I was vomiting continuously. And what Noah got, my son, he got joy. He was laughing hysterical. He could not stop laughing. And he's just like, I'm so sorry, but you're so funny. And I mean, he's like, everybody's vomiting. And he goes, I just think it's the funniest thing. And he was dancing, he was laughing. And I mean, just it lit up my heart, even if it's just in this moment that, they often say that with ayahuasca, you get what you need. And he got joy. He needed joy. And so, it was incredible. And he has been better since that experience with the ayahuasca. He's been able to connect a little bit better and, be more present and see moments of joy. Still not
That's
happy. Kind
yeah,
of happy.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. We're never going to be the same, and I don't say that to be negative, because in some ways we're better, but we're never going to be the same person that we were. And while we can have joy, to have that unbridled happiness that we imagined that we had before, which really didn't have before. We had other problems before, but
Right.
now they just pale in comparison to the loss of a child, for example. But we can have those moments of joy, and they can become more common, and the pain can become. Uh, I don't say it becomes less; it just becomes more bearable. We become used to it; becomes easier to carry. We become stronger people, so the pain's easier to carry.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It doesn't get any lighter. We just become stronger. So the weight of it doesn't feel as bad.
Yeah. Well, Nell Rose, it's really been great meeting you. We're coming up on about an hour, so I want to respect your time, but I appreciate you doing this, telling us about Jack and about your experience and your family, and hopefully for the listeners, giving people hope that we can get through these things. For yourself, it's being a year and a half in, for someone that maybe this just happened to, you can see where you might be able to get to, after some time. So there is. Uh, there are better days ahead if you're having a rough day.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, and hopefully I'll talk to you later. Oh, and by the way, send me the video, and I'll try to put it in the show notes, and I'll put it on the YouTube video as well.
I will. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
And now, as promised, here's the image that Nell Rose sent me that she believes is her son Jack as a light being. Hey, thanks for watching. Before you leave, I'd like to just remind you, you can always find me at www.grief2growth.com. That's grief, numeral 2, growth.com. And you can schedule a free half-hour consultation if you'd like. Also, before you leave, please click on the like button here, click on subscribe, and click on the bell. By clicking like, YouTube will show the video to more people. And by subscribing and clicking the bell, you'll be notified when I release new material. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.